Hi, and welcome to Marillion Monthly. I'm Jerry Ewing, the editor of Prog Magazine, and Lucy has very kindly invited me down to Marillion's inner sanctum, and she's told me I can ask them anything I want, so I'm going to. But we'll start easy, because you're about to go on tour. So, how are rehearsals going?
We haven't yet, have we?
Yeah,
we sort of have, yeah.
We have.
We've had a knock through.
Pretty well, I think, so far.
Yeah.
We're starting tomorrow with Lewis, the percussionist.
Yep.
Louis Jardine, and looking forward to that. So we'll start running the sets all this week.
Mm. So last time we saw you live, you played the whole of An Hour Before It's Dark.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're not going to be playing the whole of the album this time round. No. You probably don't want to give too much away, but
Two of them. Three, is it?
Three of them.
I think three.
Yeah.
And a good selection
of
other things as well.
I mean, how do you pick a set? I mean, obviously, if you've got a new album...
We squabble.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, is it you sort of throw ideas around in here and end up... I mean, like I said, you played the whole of the album last time. You kind of expect a lot from a new album when you tour it, you know.
Yeah.
But when you go out and you don't have new product to push... Does it feel freer to choose? And
we tend to look at, you know, the songs that each of the five of us like best, but then we bear in mind whichever songs have been flogged to death in the past, you know. We'll sometimes rest songs. We haven't played Easter for a few tours because we realised it had been in just about every tour ever, so it needed a rest. And we rested Neverland, I think, the last tour. So, and they're great songs, but we don't always play our best material just because it's our best material. We think, well, we flogged that to death. And so that has a bearing on it as well.
We've got like a spreadsheet, which kind of, you know, well, actually Lucy's got the spreadsheet. I'd say she's a bit of a spreadsheet nerd, where we keep a track of what we've been doing, you know, over the years. And so if somebody says, oh, how about this? I'll look at it. Oh, well, we played that on the last tour. Maybe we should give that one a rest and do something else. So, I mean, with how many albums have we done? Like 20 albums or something? There's a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
So we're not short of songs to play, really.
Yeah, you try and keep it fresh at the same time. You throw in a couple of things that you haven't played for a while.
Ian usually steams in at the end and says, "This is a lot of slow stuff." So then we had a couple of fast things to cheer him up, and that's usually the end of it.
Yeah, it's a matter of balance.
is there a Marillion song that you've never played live that you really would like to?
There's a
Older Than Me, have we played Older Than Me?
on the last tour, that was the first time we played that.
We did play it on the last time.
This tour, there's a song that we're playing that we only played a few times when it was new, and we just left it after that. So, you know, it's nice to put in a couple of rarities if we can think of something that's going to work.
I'm trying to think what that song is.
Really? Don't worry, Pete.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
No spoilers. Yeah. So yeah, it's a case of getting a balance. You know, one or two rarities, some fan favourites, some band favourites, some ones with a bit of tempo for Ian. You know.
Because I mean, the balancing act is always difficult because the fan base is always going to go, we want the old stuff. You know, and it's not practical. You don't want to do it. You're sick and tired maybe of some of those songs. There's other things that are perhaps more important that you want to get across.
You need a good opener. You need a good finishing song. You know, so it's...
Also, there's something Lucy and I were chatting about earlier with the reissues that have come out, which have been fantastic. I mean, they're really so lovely, well presented. And for me as a fan, it gives me the chance to actually go back and listen. So I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed Holidays in Eden, for example, until I've got this and I'm listening. I'm like, oh, God, yeah, I remember, you know. And does that happen with you guys as well? I mean, obviously you made the music, but you know, it's like, oh God.
Yeah, every now and again you stumble across one and go, bloody hell, this is better than I thought it was. At the time, you know, is this us? Wow, because I don't know about everybody else, but I never listen to our music unless I'm working on it.
Yeah, same.
Once it's finished, I'll leave it alone. You know, you've heard it enough, and you only ever hear what's wrong with it anyway. But sometimes you're just surprised because someone will be playing it and you think, who's that? Oh, this is all right. Oh shit, it's one of ours. And you can be, that can lead you to get, well, that happened with this song I'm not allowed to name. You know, when I burst into the room and said, you know, I just heard the other day, and it's amazing. It's a lot better than I thought it was. Why don't we do it? And everybody went, oh, yeah. So there's a bit of that.
Yeah.
Totally understandable that musicians don't tend to listen to, because they're normally looking on to the next thing that they're going to be working on, and you've spent so much time working on it, and often there's a gap between finishing it and it coming out. But do you guys listen to music for enjoyment?
No.
You mean other music? Not
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
All the time, yeah.
So, okay, so what's in the car? What's on the car stereo or on, you know, the iPhone or whatever, Mark?
Oh,
currently?
blimey. I've been listening to old 60s stuff and trying to find stuff that in fact, I'll tell you what I was listening to yesterday. Slade, a lot of Slade.
Right, yeah.
You know, which is, they've actually written some really good songs. You know,
Yeah.
They have, yeah.
you know, even though they're, you know, we sort of remember them like I was a kid, and they're like a pop band, you know, but actually they were quite a heavy rock band, and it was, you know, it was quite fun going back and listening to some of the old stuff.
One of Prog's writers, Darryl Eastley's just written a book on Slade, ironically.
Oh, okay.
Called Whatever Happened to Slade.
Yeah.
And it's a great big hefty, and it's he interviewed me for it, and there's that thing, just as you say, there's actually a lot more going on than the glam hits.
Yeah, sure.
Great bass player as well, actually.
Jim Lee was a great writer.
And great songwriter as well.
Yeah.
Steve, what are you listening to?
Bon Iver.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, really love. But it's just kind of whatever comes on. I listened to the Dark Side of the Moon for the first time in years, a couple of nights ago. So, yeah, sometimes it's the old favourites. Sometimes you're searching around for something interesting. Many sort of singer-songwriters for me these days. Sufjan Stevens and various people.
Right. Mr. Hogarth.
Bob Marley.
Right.
Like a bit of dub reggae. Like Massive Attack a lot. I was driving back from the airport because I'd been in Spain over the weekend, and driving back last night listening to World Party. What is Love All About? What a track. I'd heard that for years. It was Sonic Masterpiece as well. It's a great song. What else did we have on? I mean, Radiohead. Got a lot of time for Radiohead.
Ian?
Well, I sort of, you know, go into YouTube for a couple of minutes, end up being there for a few hours.
You've all done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other day, I was listening to a load of Stevie Marriott stuff, you know, the Small Faces.
Yeah.
I just thought, bloody hell, what a talent.
He was really
What
talented,
voice?
wasn't he?
What voice?
Yeah.
Yeah. That
And
was just
guitar
brilliant.
player.
And then, what else the other day? Leprous.
Ah, yeah.
I really like them.
Yeah.
They're
They
really
do
good.
something really interestingly, I think, sonically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really good. So, but all over the place.
Right. Pete?
Well, interestingly, I've been listening to a bit of Boz Scaggs recently because my brother-in-law was playing me some stuff. And I said, oh, who's this? And he said, oh, it's Boz Scaggs. And I thought, it doesn't sound anything like the Boz Scaggs I remember. But his early stuff and his later stuff is very different to the kind of the commercial stuff that was going around
'cause
in the 80s.
He started out with Steve Miller, didn't he?
Yes, he did,
He was in
yeah,
Steve Miller's
yeah.
band. Then he had the massive hit with Silk Degrees and the
Yeah.
Lido Shuffle and
All
things
of
like
that,
that,
yeah.
which
And
I
then
think
he
people
carried
say
on.
falls under yacht rock these days.
Yes, probably does.
And sort of like White Soul. But I've got to be honest, I haven't really listened to
Oh,
anything.
it's quite interesting. It's much more folky actually
right.
than you'd think.
Interesting. Obviously, you've had a year of the weekends this year, and last year was new album tour. So if you kind of look at a Marillion sort of time passage, that would seem to imply that you might be working on new material next year.
Absolutely right.
Would that be correct?
That's
No,
absolutely
yeah,
correct.
yeah.
Somebody told you, surely. I mean, it's not often we work on new material.
Yeah.
I mean, have you been working on stuff or
No.
Not consciously. not consciously. I think, you know, we've probably all got a few things that we think, oh, that'd be nice to work on, or I've got an idea that I'd like to bring up at some point, but we haven't actually consciously come in and done
Said
that
we'll
yet.
start next year,
Yeah.
so come January, we'll be in here.
Right.
Clock it in.
I mean,
How long do you give yourselves the kind of time frame to create a new record, or is there that danger that left to your own devices you'd meander away forever?
Well, once we get started, it's usually, I mean, it's not usually quick, but it doesn't take more than a year from starting, from like, so for example, if we start in January, we should have it written and recorded by the end of the year. So, well, we did with the last one.
no, I know. No,
all right, we were slowed down a bit by the whole pandemic and everybody
Yeah.
having to work from home and all that. But if you look at the amount of months we spent in here, the 5 of us working, writing and recording, it was much less than a year. So
It just depends how long it takes us to get into the zone, really, how inspired we are. And we're lucky that we still have a great musical chemistry, and when things start to happen, it's usually several great ideas in succession. But sometimes that could take like a month or two before you can get yourself into that place.
Right.
Get a month to get him into the building, let alone the zone.
I think it's determined on how many good ideas, or how many ideas that we all enjoy.
Right.
You know, and when there's kind of a reasonable amount of those, then we'll start looking at what we're doing and add to them. You know, and that's when the sort of writing and arranging can really start in earnest.
Usually when we're rehearsing as well, like coming up for this tour, once we get into the swing of it, then we'd usually come in and maybe jam for 10 minutes before we actually start rehearsing.
Right, and those are all recorded.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's probably hundreds of great ideas from the last writing session that
Yeah.
we didn't use.
Yeah.
So maybe Michael sift through and create his top 20 of those ideas that we'll maybe come to and jam around a bit more and see if we can find somewhere to take them.
Right, yeah, that was actually kind of answered what I was going to say next.
Right, yeah.
Do you have a pool of material that's sort of floating that sometimes, actually, I think that might work.
We've got a finished song, haven't we?
yeah, there's at least
At
one.
least, but yeah, there might even
There's-
be a couple.
There's over 1,000 ideas that have been considered good enough to keep on the shelf. So,
Right.
I mean, there's literally,
Big shelf.
in the cloud somewhere.
Yeah.
One day,
Suddenly feel
something,
like Prince.
something will write them, even if we don't.
Because we're in the inner sanctum. This is, I guess, where it all comes together.
Some magic happens.
Yeah, I mean, how does it work? Talk us through what a day of in the life of Marillion when you're working
What,
on a
when
new
we're
album.
writing?
Yeah,
Well, we've always written by jamming, ever since I joined the band in '89 and probably before that.
Yeah.
And we've learned over the so that process is we have some kind of recording media running. In the early days, it'd just be stereo, a cassette or a mini disc, and then we carried on up with each new invention. And now we're running multi-tracks from day one.
right.
And we learn over the years that the good stuff happens in the first half hour of every day. So
Right.
that's justified as just coming in for half an hour now. Because we know we're wasting our time if we do more than that.
With a coffee break.
So when we're seriously writing, we'll come in, even if it's just for half an hour, we'll come in and we'll jam and we'll go away again.
Right.
We'll be running multi-tracks. Mike will be recording everything. He's usually sitting in the control room. If he hears an interesting, happy accident go by, he'll flag it so that
Right.
he can come back to it and go, what was that? I'll have a listen to that again. And bit by bit, we just build up, as Mark's pointed out, over time,
Right.
hundreds, if not thousands, of little bits that are all just accident.
So,
I'm usually on a mic I've got lyrics up on the screen that I've written either recently or over the years, things that have not been used. And while the band's jamming, I'll be trying to feel for how that makes me feel. And if I've got anything
yeah.
that would work, and I'll try it 9 times out of 10 it won't, and it'll go in the bin. But just now and again, you'll have a little moment where you go, "Ooh, hang on a minute. you know, and you can feel them. You know, you get the chills.
When you talked about jamming, how you've always written, I'm reminded, I think, when Third Prog interviewed you guys for Season's End, which of course was your first album, how you said that you weren't actually used to writing by jamming when you joined the band, and that was a bit of a learning curve for you.
I had to slow down a lot.
Well, how long did it take for you to sort of assimilate into the way of Marillion in terms of creating music?
I think any day now, Jim.
No, it was a brave. It was a brave.
It was
album,
probably
wasn't it,
brave.
really.
I mean, it was a learning curve for all of us at the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, Season's End, we had a lot of building blocks between us of lyrics and songs or song ideas. Steve had some songs. So it was a lot easier than the process we had to go through for Holidays in Eden. And by the end of that, I think we kind of, when we started writing for Brave, we understood how everybody was going to function and work, and how we could move things along.
We worked a lot harder writing Brave than we've ever worked on anything. I remember we would come in and we'd do evening sessions as well as day sessions, and
Wow.
Mark and I would come back after tea, wouldn't we? And
we
do
got
another
this.
hour.
Yeah.
With a bottle of wine.
No.
Of course, then our you know, the whole sort of family life takes over, and you got school runs to do and all of that, and so you have to work around that to some degree. So we don't work as hard now as we used to, I don't think. But we are older, and we have retired. It's just that we didn't notice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that you're all, to a certain degree, active musically outside of Marillion to varying degrees. I mean, you had the Marathon Project, and obviously your autobiography. You've got the Steve Rothery Band, and you know,
3 other albums.
there is, isn't there, the space-themed album?
Yeah,
coming
Reverend Toulet. There's an album with Steve Hackett, and there's an album with Thorsten Quershning from Tangerine Dream.
Right.
Which is
The band's Mike Portnoy.
The H solo stuff, you had an EP out with Richard as well from Porcupine Tree earlier this year, didn't you?
I do occasionally collaborate with him. He's brilliant. So.
Ian wrote his book and played with Gordon Giltrap, your old mate.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I got paid in biscuits.
Yes, well, I remember because we met at the King Crimson film, and you were telling, and of course there's Transatlantic, which may or may not be on ice. Edison's Children with you.
And Keno years ago with John Mitchell and John Beck.
How do you fit those things into? You know, because it does seem like you are incredibly busy as a band, even if you're not recording an album. You know, you have the years where you have the weekends, which is that sort of fantastic idea that now other bands are sort of going. You can see it happening more and more. You know, obviously when you write for Marillion, that takes up a huge chunk of time. You go out on the road quite a lot for a bunch
of old guys.
Yeah. So where do you fit that other stuff in?
Well, we did have about 3 months off, didn't we, this year?
Yeah, we did.
After the last of the conventions, we'd sort of built that in to have a bit of downtime. So
you could normally tell because you see the photo pictures start going up on social media. The holiday photos.
The holiday
photos.
I had
photos
a lot
in Pete's case.
There's quite a bit of time, really. I mean, when we're at the jamming stage, as I said, we're probably doing 1 hour days at that point.
Right.
And the rest of the day is your own. And so if the phone rings and some character's saying, "Have you got any words you could throw on this?" And I go, "Well, I can have a look. I don't think I have, but I'll have a look." I made an album with Isilda Spain, the Swedish band, completely by mistake, because they said, "Can you get involved in this?" I said, "No way, I've got no time at all. I'm on tour in America." And they said, "Well, can we just send you one?" And I said, "No." And they sent it me, and I sent it back, and they said, "That's great. Can we send you another?" I said, "No, I haven't got any time."
And they did.
And
it's a great record, though. I mean, they the stuff they did with Peter Hamill as well. I think after they worked with you is also fascinating to listen to.
Well, it was written with all my resistance. I could tell you.
Yeah, I kept getting asked to play solos on people's records, which is one of the reasons my Reverend Toulet album's taken so long. It's about 12 or more guest appearances of the Collage album and Legacy Pilots. I did a couple of solos on that. And yeah, it just, each one takes maybe 4 or 5 days. So quite often that's like the best part of the 3 months you had off.
Yeah.
Just doing that. So I'm trying not to do that in the future.
How easy is it for you to know if you're creating a bit of music that it's perhaps not right for Marillion but would work on projects that you've got going?
When nobody gets excited about it, you should take it somewhere else.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now we kind of have this understanding that, when we were working on the last album, we sort of decided that, we haven't got that many albums left in us, so anything we work on, it should be something all 5 of us think is good and worth
special.
it.
Has to be special.
So that's kind of narrows it down. I think it maybe takes a bit longer to select the material. But I suppose because of that, there's a lot of things that we all come up with at various times that like the Marathon album. A lot of those ideas kind of originated from jams in this room that I came up with something that didn't go anywhere, Right. So I think it's a good outlet for stuff that doesn't.
It's healthy, I think, to have that sort of outlet.
But also, it's very easy to be complacent about Marillion and get so used to working in the way we work that you don't realise what it's like in the big world outside. When you stick your foot out of our lovely, super yacht of a band, you suddenly realise that the sea's really choppy and you're in, tiny little rowing boat with another bunch of blokes and there's not much going on,
Don't ask you which rowing boat that is.
It's quite nice to get back and be sort of back in the fold and in the comfort.
Plain sailing through the
QE2.
Ironically, I got interviewed twice last week. Once about journalism, and once for a book that's coming out. But both entailed the story, obviously, because Marillion were quite influential in my career choice. Having, you go back to the marquee gigs and the web and started a fanzine and ended up doing classic rock and prog magazine. And one of those is about the whole 80s scene that happened. And of course, which reminds me that it's pretty much 40 years since the debut album came out.
Yeah.
So, 3 of you that were obviously played on that album, did you think then that this would be what it was?
You don't think that far ahead, really.
No.
You think maybe to the next album, hoping that you'll get a chance to make another album. But you can never imagine that it'd be 40 years. You're still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Job for life. Yeah.
Yeah, shocking.
It's very scary. How quick time's gone.
A huge success story, if you think. Certainly, we've all seen, since that debut album, we've seen the music business sort of almost disintegrate compared with what it had been the decade before.
Yeah.
But and obviously along the way you've learnt and done the right things in terms of obviously the setup you have here, the crowdfunding aspect of things as well. But that's 40 years of success, but also huge change, not just for but for the sort of the area within which you work.
Yeah.
We've been really fortunate because we haven't had the huge success of some of these bigger bands that are in a situation where it doesn't matter whether they work or not financially. We're sort of in that middle ground really, where we're making a living, but to do it consistently for 40 years is, there's probably, I don't even know how many bands or artists will have, have done that for that period of, that length of time at the level that we're at.
Yeah, the consistency of what we've done as well.
It's a big part of that is down to the fans sticking with us for that time,
We never, because we never really had the massive support of major labels. We had some support when they thought we might be successful, And then that was soon pulled away when they realised it wasn't going to happen. And I don't think any record company really understood us. Capitol certainly didn't. You know, at best EMI thought we were some kind of novelty act, and they'd see how it went. You know.
Yeah.
So we had to rely on ourselves and our resources and our fans.
Of all the bands, though, from that period in time, you know, and I remember it, obviously thinking back as I was last week, I remember it as being a really exciting time because I was discovering new music, or
Yeah.
it was new to me. You know, those gigs at the Marquee, it was just a very exciting. But you were the ones that did have success. And I think, would you agree perhaps, I mean, you say that you never had massive support, but certainly without EMI, you possibly wouldn't have carried on through.
Yeah, no, I think
absolutely.
that's...
There are a few of those bands. I mean, I think we all spoke to the same journalist.
Andrew Wilde.
Yeah, Andrew,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that, you know, from that time, you know, one of the bands that stands out to me is Pendragon, because they never had any success in that sense in commercial terms.
Yeah.
But they're still
Well,
going.
this is the thing. I mean, almost all of the bands that are probably going to be written about in that book, you're looking at about 70% of those are still going in some form or other, which is quite remarkable.
It's because you do it...
And again, a great testament to the fans who want that sort of music.
And the fact that they're doing it for the love, not for commercial
Yeah.
success. They do it because it's a genre of music they deeply believe in and that they're still passionate about.
So, I mean, were you aware of what was going on in '83? That sort of Marillion, that little scene that Marillion spearheaded, or
Not
was
really,
it,
no.
It wasn't
no idea.
until someone said, "Oh, why don't you try out for Marillion because they need a singer?" A couple of years later.
Yeah, and that was more from the point of view of the writing than the being the singer thing. It was my publisher that said, you know, Marillion looking around for a lyricist, and they're looking around for a singer, and so I don't know if they were even saying to me, you know, do you want to be the singer of Marillion? It was more like, you know, shall we send them some songs? And I said, well, yeah, if you like. My band had just split up.
Yeah.
And
How We Live, yeah.
Yeah, How We Live had just split up. It was Christmas, and I went into the office at Rondor in Parsons Green, and everybody was hungover, and they were all lying face down because they'd all been at some hellish party the night before. And I went in to ask if they'd be up for me working in their office, because I'd got nothing to do. My band had split up, and I said, can anyone think of anything for me to do? And I wanted to work there because I liked that office at Parsons Green. It always had a great atmosphere. I would have been happy engineering, or, you know, sitting at a desk next to one of the secretaries. I'd have been perfectly happy doing that if they'd give me money. So that's when I was asking. And this guy Alan Jones raised a bleary eye from the sofa where he was recovering, and said, you know, Marillion are looking for a singer and a writer. And I went, no. And he went, well, we could send them a tape. And I said, well, all right then. That's not really what I meant. I meant, could I work in the office? So he sent a cassette, and I forgot all about it until I got...
Ian heard it famously in the car and had to pull over.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Ian heard it. The management phoned up and said, would you like to meet up? And I wasn't really sure, to be honest, if I would. And then I was in the pub with Darryl Way from Curved Air, because he was my best mate in Windsor at the time. And he was saying, oh, you should go and meet some really nice people. So he kind of swung it, you know. Then I turned up a day late because I lost my car. And
Shape of things to come.
I mean, just go back to the 83 thing. I mean, you were with Steve Hackett at the time, weren't you?
Yes.
You were drumming with Steve Hackett. Were you kind of aware of what was...
I was aware of nothing. But the last kind of few gigs with Steve Hackett, we used to do signing sessions after the shows. And lots of punters were saying to me, Ian, what do you think of Marillion? And I knew nothing about Marillion. And I remember saying to Chaz, the bass player, who's Marillion then? And he said, oh, band, tall bloke, Scottish singer. I said, oh. So all these people were coming by and said, Marillion, yeah, great, they're great. You know, because I had my kind of session head on.
Yeah.
So everything's wonderful. And then that was it, really. And then I got home after the tour had finished, and that was kind of the end of the Hackett band, really. And I opened up, it was either a NME or Melody Maker, and it said, Marillion need drummer. So what's going on here? So that's how it came about. Then I thought, who do I know in the Marillion camp? And Paul Crockford,
Right.
who worked for Steve Hackett, knew John Arneson, and he wrote me a letter of introduction. So that's how it kind of came about. And everyone lived within a 10-mile radius of where I was living as well, near Tring. So I thought, must be a sign.
It's
He's
fascinating.
managing
isn't it?
Trevor Horn.
No,
Paul Crockford is managing Trevor Horn.
Small world, isn't it?
level 42, I think.
These little quirks of fate that connect, that mean that 40 years down the line, you know, you're still
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
if you hadn't opened that Melody Maker, if you had decided to tour with the
If Darryl Way hadn't been my drinking mate,
Yeah.
we
you know,
might never have had.
I mean, who knows? But
If I'd have got that job at the National Film Archive in Aston Clinton, yeah, everything could be different.
If I passed my 11 plus,
Yeah.
When we wanted, you know, we all heard Steve's voice and we thought, great, and we met him and everything. Then it was kind of, do you think you'll come along? And he really didn't know what to do, did you? You hadn't made your mind up.
I got my head very much into playing piano with the Dare, and I'd already said I would do it. So it sort of, I was very split. I was very...
So I rang up Darryl Way, because he was my old boss.
yeah, right.
And Darryl,
Of course, you played in Wolf, didn't you?
yeah. I said, Darryl, Steve, you know, he can't make his mind up. Can we send flowers to anybody? And so I think he did have another word with Steve.
Right.
He did. He hustled me.
Mm.
Well, all he said was that you were a really nice bunch of guys, and you know, and that I should definitely come and meet you. That was.
bet you haven't spoken to him since, have you?
No, I have actually.
I'm joking,
I did a song with him, didn't I? Not that long ago.
You did, yeah, for his album that came out towards the end of the last concept album,
Well, he did.
based on a book he's written, I think.
He did the little orchestral arrangement for Great Escape.
He did.
He did.
He did,
Way
yeah.
years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great job.
So the year ahead, writing,
Yeah.
working on a new album
And recording.
and recording.
Cruise to the Edge.
You're doing Cruise to the Edge,
Yeah.
right?
The only live thing probably next year
Really?
for the band. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to get the Prog Awards back up and running for.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got a good
give us-
excuse to go
Give us
out.
something to look forward to.
We'll try a lot harder if there's
Yeah, if
if
we
there's a
know.
whiff of an award.
Yeah, and a free
Try
meal.
twice as well.
Well, I was surprised to say when Lucy showed me upstairs, it was like I said, only got 4. I could have sworn that you'd had more than that, but
We might have sold 1 or 2 on
Four.
eBay.
I'm sure. I'm sure we can sort something out for next year. So,
Four's
okay.
all right.
Listen, it's been wonderful. Thank you
Cheers,
very
Joe.
much, Lucy, for inviting me down, and you guys for being great company.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.